Yeah, I know quite a bit about that whole area up there.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting on July 21st, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could please begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll begin with the roll call. Commissioner Huggins,
Here.
Commissioner Fatisi,
Present.
Commissioner DeVoyne,
He's on vacation.
Commissioner DeVoyne's called out. Commissioner Jasper, present. Commissioner Frenette, called out. Thank you. Commissioner Bowman,
Present.
Commissioner Sexton, not present. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. I have 6:32 as the time. Therefore, we have a quorum. Thank you. And moving on to the consent agenda, it's 6:32, which contains the minutes from the June 16th meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review these?
Mm-hmm.
And are there any corrections or changes needed?
I personally don't have anything, no.
I don't have anything.
Me neither.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the minutes from June 16th, 2026 as written.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 17th,
Okay,
June 16th,
16th.
2026. Sorry.
thank you. Commissioner Fatisi, and looking for a second?
A second.
Second, thank you, Commissioner Bowman. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. It is now 6:33. Moving on to the general public comments. Please keep comments to 3 minutes or less because state law prohibits the use of city facilities for the purpose of supporting or opposing a campaign or ballot proposition. We respectfully request that public comment not make reference to such matters. Written comments will be accepted by letter or via email at nmcgowan@sedro-woolley.gov. Attention public comment until 4:30 p.m. the day before the meeting.
Staff did not receive any written comments.
Okay. And doesn't look like anyone's online. Does anyone present have any comments? All right. No comments, so we'll go ahead and close public comments. I have 6:33 as the time. Moving into the public hearings. Okay, no public hearings. Thank you very much. Moving into unfinished business, I have 6:33 as the time. Updates to Title 2, 13, 15, 16, and 17 Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code. Repeal and replace the consolidated planning procedures.
All right, great, thank you. What is this? I'm Tom Glover, I'm the Community Development Director for the city. What's driving this are a couple of things. Some recent legislation that came out of the state legislature, requiring us to update certain aspects of this, as well as we have our new comprehensive plan, and we're getting some policy direction from it. And then also staff has been tracking things within our code over the past couple of years, keeping a to-do list, if you will, of things that we need to fix. So here was our time to pull all of that together and take a look, comb through it, and Nicole and Ashton especially have done a great job combing through the code and coming up with suggested edits for you all to consider. So with that, though, I'd like to turn it over to Nicole for her presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Just to recap what we talked about last meeting, so these changes to the Local Project Review Act were passed by the legislature under Senate Bill 5290. Largely, those updates are intended to combat Washington State's housing crisis by streamlining and modernizing local permitting procedures. So there have been some major changes that we're implementing here, or proposing to implement more so. This chapter of the code hasn't been updated since 2008, so you'll see a lot of outdated things in that chapter. More so for ease of navigation and administrative implementation, we've made some changes on the organization of it too. So that's why you'll see we have proposed to entirely repeal Chapter 290, and we're kind of dividing this up into kind of two major areas. So as far as Title 15, we've renamed that to Buildings, Construction, and Development, and moved all of the consolidated permit administration items under there. So this is intended to be kind of a comprehensive guide for permitting processes and housed in an intuitive location in the code. Some things we've done with that, according to the updates with the Local Project Review Act, we have updated review and permitting timelines consistent with what they're requiring now. Let's see. Most of the definitions that were located in Chapter 290, we felt it be best to have definitions just located in one area of the code. So you'll see all of those moved over to 1704-030. As far as administrative provisions, such as public notices and appeals, those are now located in Chapter 1704 administrative provisions as well. Other changes, we're using tables instead of lengthy lists, so for ease of navigation, and generally just updating any references to Chapter 290 to the respective provisions in their new location in the code. So at the June 16th Planning Commission meeting, we presented a first draft of those proposed amendments and asked for feedback from the Planning Commission. We did also have some additional changes that our legal team proposed in advance of the unit lot subdivision code. So he asked us to put together some definitions for mostly related to unit lot subdivision. I've highlighted those in 1704-030 for you. I will preempt that by saying those are still kind of under review with the legal team, so you might see those definitions change a little bit. But from the feedback that we got from the Planning Commission, some of those things that I did manage to change ahead of today's meeting and what you'll see in draft 2 of the amendments is removing any references to requiring Mylars. I realize that I did miss a couple references in there. Let's see. I did get some duplicative language fixed for the pre-application meetings. So in 1515-012, that describes the purpose of the pre-application meetings and for what types of projects they're required. In section 1515-014, that is intended to essentially, what we wanted to do is provide like the general application procedure, and granted, not all permit types require a pre-application meeting, but it's always recommended. So we wanted to put that one as step 1, just get a pre-app.
Hey, here's a silly question. What do you, when somebody comes in for a permit now, what are you actually going off of the old code? Like, there's no 1515 in the old code. It goes from 1504 to 1540. It sounds like a bit of a challenge for you guys, right? I mean,
It's painful.
yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, everything is in Chapter 290, and you just have to dissect where it is. Yeah. Yeah, we can get more into that. Other than that, let's see. I tried looking through that general application process description as well, and just to remove any language that might indicate like a certain process might be required, but it's kind of a difficult thing. We're trying to say like, this is the general process, but not all permits hit those steps. So we can look at that a little bit closer. And then there were some grammatical changes as well. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor to the Planning Commission for any discussion. It's a lot, so I'm happy to do this however you guys see fit. We can go through it page by page if we need to. But.
No, this was a lot of work.
It was.
You know, when I took a look at it from the old code, I keep both of them up when I'm going through things, just to grasp my head around what's being done. So it looks like it's going to streamline a whole bunch of things on your side and resolve any ambiguity that potentially has come up in the past that you could probably opine on way more than I could. So,
Yeah, that's the major intent here, is reducing the ambiguity and just ease of navigation for all parties involved. So both applicants and staff alike. That way there's no question, how do we process this permit?
right, right.
And I think to that end, having the planning commission, you know, a fresh set of eyes, take a look at this. We look at it inside and out every day, but what might be obvious to us might not be obvious to somebody else looking at it for the first time. And then, you know, as we talk to our development community, we want them to peruse it too, and to see if, I mean, they're the ones that have to use it and build the thing according to how our regs are. So we hope that as we go through that, we can get their input on this too. Does it make sense? So, yeah. Anyway, so we did get feedback from some of you. We really appreciate that.
And I will say that you're definitely on the right track. When we, at BYK, when we had a new employee start and she didn't have any permitting experience, I just tried to go through this with her and explain, and even I was confused, and a lot has been cleared up. And so this is great work, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Just the same that you guys have done a wonderful job putting it together, and I think it's going to clean up a lot of things. So
Thank you. Tables are great.
Because it goes right to the facts that you need instead of hunting around for it. A lot of times, if I'm looking through other jurisdictional code, like I thought Bellevue would be a lot clearer than it is. It's like a fishing mission to really find things. Where some things are pretty consistent on permitted uses and things like that. Some of the code in some of the communities, it's all over the place. So it's good that we're thinking forward based upon past experience to clean things up that are more understandable. Because at the end of the day, somebody has a lot of money invested in what these projects really are. So clarity is paramount, really, at the end of the day, to make sure everybody's clear on things, because there's so many players involved, as you're more than aware of it. It's not just city staff. I mean, you could have 100+ people on the other side trying to get something off of the ground.
And I just want to say thank you. Updating a regulation or code, especially after almost 20 years, can be very daunting. And I think it's always best to take the entire thing instead of just pieces. So great job with everything. The comments I submitted, I'm very happy with all of the responses. So nothing further to add from me.
Thank you.
You know, hindsight's always 20/20. What did you find when you were going through stuff 20 years old that maybe could have been done better even at that time?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah. Things change over time, right? So references to more generalized things is good. So if you, like, for example, we found many references to like the 2005 Department of Ecology manual, for example, and it's like, we're obviously not under that anymore.
Yeah.
But if you say something like the most current iteration of, then you don't have to come back and constantly
Right.
update your code every time you have a new Department of Ecology manual come out. So things like that. One of the major things, we had this huge list of required submittals for every single application type. And it was like, I need 10 copies of a SEPA checklist, right? This was before email was a thing, right? So
Right.
we were literally taking these
Or
paper
PDFs
copies
or
of
really
things
anything,
and
yeah.
mailing it to people to review,
Wow.
right? So it's like, okay, just have a checklist on your application, something like that. You don't need to codify everything.
Right.
Have some flexibility, especially when it comes to the permitting procedures. If it's outlined in the state laws, it's outlined in the state laws. It should be in there, but by reference, right? Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, simple is good. Simple's good.
Does anyone have anything else?
I do. I'm wondering, so let's see what page. This is page 15, permit types and processes. Above, there's kind of like a list of different applicable permit types. But I'm wondering, we jump into the permit classifications table, and I'm wondering if there should be explanation about the decision authority beforehand. And I'm not sure if it's referenced farther down.
Give an example, because I'm just looking at it. It just says city council, admin, which would be inside, hearing examiner.
Yeah, so I'm kind of trying to look at this as like I am trying to train a new person that has never experienced permits before, right? Hearing examiner, like it dives into kind of hearing examiner process and things like that. And I don't know if maybe this is like too much information to give, right? If this is if it's someone looking to permit something should come, obviously they should come to you guys and talk about it. But someone that doesn't read code, someone that isn't familiar with like what is the hearing examiner process, right? So before it goes into talking about the decision authorities in the with linked to a permit type. And I mean, I guess, and that's one thing about like the definition section is the definition section is really hefty. There's a lot of information in the definition section. And so it's like, is someone gonna, I don't know, I'm trying to just get this train of thought of somebody looking at this for the first time and trying to decipher like, oh, okay, I have a permit type number 3. Like, what does that mean? But I don't know at what level, and I'm sure you guys have more experience with this, right? Because you have people that don't have permitting experience come to you and get information from you. So this would definitely be your call, but it was one of my things when it just kind of jumped into decision authority, like how that's defined.
Yeah. So maybe it'll help by kind of giving a bit of an explanation on how we chose this flow. So under the permit types and processes, that's 15.15.014. So it talks about your permitting procedures and goes into your tables on, okay, here's your list of permit applications and what type they are. And then the following table tells you for that permit type, this is your staff contact and this is your decision authority. And then following that, after you kind of go through your permit process for that, okay, you're like, my permit type requires a hearing examiner approval, right? So then the next section kind of tells you general process. So if you realize, okay, I need a public hearing and an examiner's decision, then it's telling you how that would work.
Gotcha, like that,
So
yeah.
it's intended to be flow-like, so you just kind of one page after the next, I get it now, right? So
Okay.
if there's any way that we need to make adjustments to this to make that more clear, I'm all ears, but that's the intention there.
This is a stupid question. Who's our hearings examiner and what's their background?
We have a consultant out of Seattle.
Okay?
Yeah, Peregrine Sorter is his name. Land use attorney.
Anything else, Commissioner Bowman?
I have a little list. I can talk, or if anybody else wants to, has anything within that section. Let's see.
You
Is
live
this-
in this stuff. That's why your input's really, really important, so.
So on page 24, I'm trying to like backtrack a little bit to see what my train of thought was going through all of this. But on page 24, so it notes like pre-application meeting, this is this is number 1 priority, right? And then it goes, let's see. Well, I guess with how you just explained that, so you've got the notice to the applicants, you've got the report by the department, and then I guess you would know whether or not you're moving to the next step of any kind of public hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was gonna ask, what is the process for public requesting the city report?
So for the city report or any kind of
Like-
documentation from the application, if they want to review that, so if they've received the notice of public hearing, we always include here's how to get those documents. The staff report is also available online on the hearing examiner webpage, so anybody can just click the link and find it there.
What about like the SEPA process? Because I know there was one project where somebody had requested more information about the SEPA, but then timeline-wise, it didn't work out for them to get comments by like the end of the period. So, how does the public go about requesting like the full SEPA checklist and all of the materials?
Yeah.
Is that available online too?
Not online, so we keep all of that in an electronic file. So in the notice of application and SEPA comment period that we send out, that's where we say, if you want documents, contact me, basically. And so I'll give them everything electronically, or if they'd like to pay for copies printed, then
Yeah.
we can work that out. But yeah, it's up to them to contact us.
And then I know that like the SEPA has a director, like a database, right, that you can like search previous SEPAs within the state of Washington. When does that information go live to the public?
Generally the same day I
Okay.
put it in. So I have a portal that I submit the SEPA materials to. So anytime we're going to issue a notice of application and SEPA comment period, and anytime we issue a SEPA determination, they request that along with the SEPA checklist for the property. Sometimes they'll reach out for additional information if they need it. But so the same day that I go to contact the newspaper, hey, I'd like this published in the paper, I have like 2 days advance notice that I give them. That's the same day that I'll ask Department of Ecology to publish their stuff. So it's usually same day. It's usually right before I actually issue the notice. So,
Gotcha. I was just curious because I've looked at that in the past, and then I'm wondering like, oh, is this readily available? Like there's utility companies that reach out, like Comcast, whatever, who are interested in getting involved in the development, and so being able to just shoot them the link to the SEPA website instead of trying to get them all the documentation if they have questions or interested in it.
Yeah, those are available even before like the appeal period's over
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So it's a great resource if you want to point them in that direction.
And then a little bit of clarification on page 29. And I know I kind of talked about this last time. So you have permit deadlines and you have the application expiration. So say it's a binding site plan, you're unresponsive for 6 months. So, because the permit issuance and the permit approval are like 2 different dates in our world, right? Is the permit approved or is it issued? Like, has it been paid and picked up? And so understanding when the clock starts ticking for that. For application expiration, say you have a binding site plan that is approved, do we then have 6 months to pick up that application in the application expiration range? And then you would have, well, this is a bad example. Let's try the building permit, right? Because it has an issued permit expiration. So you have 6 months. You let the applicant know that the permit is approved, and say at the 6-month mark, they decide to pay for it and it gets issued, then you now have 2 years to utilize to build whatever you're building with the building permit. So essentially, like from approval, it would be 2.5 years.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is something we went back and forth on, because currently what's written in our code is you have 2 years from the date of approval.
And
the
some
permit.
jurisdictions are the date of approval, whether it's issued or not.
Right.
So it gets confusing
Yeah.
going to all the
And
different
this
ones.
is something we have some discretion with. So the reason that we decided to work that under the application expiration is because we have situations where we have an approved permit ready to pick up, and an applicant does not pay for it for who knows how long. So it sits in the drawer, and all that while they are eating up their time clock as far as because you have 2 years from your date of approval to finish your construction project. And so if, say, they've already used their 6-month extension,
Yeah.
that's problematic.
Yeah.
Then you have to have them apply for it, the whole thing all over again. All the plan review costs all over again. So this way, it kind of makes that clear. You have 6 months to pay for this, but you need to pay for your permit. Anyway, so, yeah. Yeah, having some teeth is helpful in this case. We've run into that issue quite a bit.
But you would think it's such a big deal to get the approval that you'd want to run in the next day and pay for it and pick it on up.
You would think.
You would think.
You would think.
In the county, so when like custom home clients, sometimes they're waiting on financing to build the whole project,
Oh,
right? And they
okay.
don't want to pay for this permit up front. That's cash out of their pocket.
Right, until it's
Yeah,
funded, yeah.
so with custom homes, it's really common, or the construction company that you're using doesn't have room to start you in their schedule. So
Right,
there's
yeah.
like a lot of little factors where we've seen,
Okay.
where this has been oh no, what's our timeline gonna look like for our
Mm-hmm.
expiration if we have to wait for other factors?
I could see the funding side having an impact depending on
Yeah.
project. I run into that quite
Yeah.
a bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm glad you brought that up. We do run into that, yeah.
On page 33, A2, revisions requested by an applicant to a vested but not yet approved application. There's the note about intensity, density, and the like involving a change of 10% or more in area or scale. In a different jurisdiction, there was a master plan application for a building, and it went through the SEPA review. And I'm just giving this background in case you guys think maybe, I don't know how to reword this, but the master plan application was submitted. The building footprint noted on the master plan application was however many square feet, right? Say it's 15,000 square feet. And it went through the SEPA process. And it went to the hearing examiner. And then when the building permit submittal and the civil permit submittal came along, because we had to get through that entire process to get to the building permit submittal, there was some adjustments to the floor plan within the building, not the building footprint, right? So the mezzanine level got a little bit larger. It increased the square footage of the actual square footage of the building, but the building wasn't designed yet. So that square footage was the footprint amount. The footprint amount was utilized to show, right, the environmental impact. This is how much building square footage, the footprint area. So it became a big concern when we submitted the building permit application and there was that second level, even though the actual open space of the building, the height didn't change. None of those circumstances changed. It could be the exact same building, just without the mezzanine. And it increased the square footage amount by the 10%. And there was the risk of having to go back through the entire process with the hearing examiner. It was zoned public. It was a big, if you read the code and you stuck to the code and you interpreted it this exact way, it would have cost 6 months and thousands of dollars for the project. But ultimately, it's hard to show when you're trying to be as close as possible on a SEPA application, like, hey, our building footprint is this, but the actual square footage of the building is unknown. That 10% threshold of that, it's just something that I've ran into in the past. So something to keep in mind. I don't have a suggestion on what should change with it. And obviously it happened one time out of tons of applications, but depending on who was interpreting that code, it could have been detrimental.
Yeah, we've run into that issue in the past, actually, too, with SEPA, for especially larger and more complex projects, where you have to go through land use approval, civil, and then you're going to your building construction phase. But at the time you originally applied, and that's when we do the SEPA review, they didn't really have a good feel for what those full design buildings were going to look like ultimately. So when it comes to SEPA review, the best I can do when I'm giving guidance to people is just, try to keep it vague enough to give yourself a little bit of flexibility at the end, so that, like, maybe give yourself a range on square footage or something like that. So that way we can look at this and provide a SEPA determination that does cover the whole project, even if you have a little bit of changes at the end. That's what I give guidance to people, because otherwise, yes, you do run into the 10% rule, and it can be problematic.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're going through the land use stage, right? Because it's such a preliminary, it's all, is this gonna work? And I know a lot of companies don't want to spend the time and the money on design consultants getting the project all the way to 80% to be able to have the information that needs to be on the SEPA, because something huge could come up in the land use portion that would make the project not feasible. So it's good to know. I will be very vague.
Purposefully vague. Yeah, no, it's a tricky thing to get through. My goal when I'm writing the SEPA determinations is to apply conditions that are also flexible, right? So it's like, maybe at this point we don't know what threshold we might be in for stormwater stuff, you know, something like that. So I'll say, apply the appropriate measure for what you're doing, essentially, like wordsmith that. But that way we have a chance to review that, whatever is applicable under the civil review, when we do know what is proposed, right? So there are ways around that. Intentional vagueness.
This is a stupid question. If you already know the footprint, where the building, where the structure is going to be, why would the actual square footage that the building actually ends up being be a factor at all for SEPA or really anything else? You know where the structure is going to be, the size of it, the dimensions, all that stuff. What actually goes inside the building shouldn't really factor into it outside of, your building plan and things like that.
A lot of times it does depend, like, what the land use might be.
Okay?
Yeah. I've found personally that in most cases, it really just doesn't change the determination,
Right.
but in some cases it can. Yeah.
I was basically thinking the same thing with the SEPA deal. I mean, if you're just going to do fuzzy logic to set the amount of the square footage of the thing, why do they bother to have a 10% rule, right? You know, you just say, hey, it's going to be between this and this, and just make sure you fall within it. I don't see why they even bother to have a 10% rule if they're accepting applications with the fuzzy logic for the square footage. So.
Where'd that number come from? Where does the 10% come from?
That's out of your whack. 11.8.
Oh, okay,
88.
so it's Washington Administrative Code, okay,
Yes.
so it's nothing that you just pulled off the wall and
Nope.
said, we're going with 10.
Yeah.
Page 35, building permits. It notes that they may be extended. How long is the allowable extension?
6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah, I was looking at that. You kind of got to read down the whole thing to determine that. So I might
Oh,
I
I
might try to
see.
reorganize that a
Yeah.
little bit to put that more at the top and then provide some exceptions from that rule. But yeah,
What would be an extenuating circumstance? Would it be something like financing that got in the way of something, or? I
it
mean,
can be a lot of different things. Financing often does come up. What else have we
It could
got?
be that there's perhaps illness or death in the family of the applicant or something, something that is pretty obvious.
So
that
we're
is-
open to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's not a set prescription there, yeah.
This is another kind of stupid question, but I don't think so. We're working on the setbacks right now from the different wetland classifications that we still haven't come up with. It's different now code-wise. And what happens if you approve the permit within that 6-month period, and now 2 months from now, we have to modify those setbacks, that now that project is not conforming to the new setbacks that come in place? Is that one of those grandfathering things? Because the setbacks are a big deal, and we've had a whole bunch of discussion on that. Not that we have wetlands all over the place here, but it's a factor, yeah.
Short answer is it depends.
Oh, it depends, okay.
Yeah, so say you have your critical area delineated under the existing code,
Okay,
and the property is developed, and you have some construction within the area after your critical areas code is
Right, right.
updated, and now say you've got your 300-foot buffer and you have construction in there, there's really not a way to accommodate that buffer. So in that case, yes, you're grandfathered in. But if you did not do that construction and you have vacant land available and you say, I would like to develop now, I will say, we'll need to meet your critical area buffer requirements and have that redelineated.
wait, that could be a value-changing proposition on the parcel itself.
Yes.
Because setbacks are a monster deal. Thank you. What else you got?
Page 55, there's a note about when the applicant is not the sole owner of the relevant real property, written consent from the property owners must accompany a permit application. Are you guys will like an agent authorization form be referenced in this code, or will you just have a form similar available?
So right now what we do is just have a written consent submitted from the owner and included in the application. We don't really have a form for that. I could chat with Nicole more about how we'd like to do that, our friendly permit tech over there. But, yeah, as far as agent authorization, really as far as it goes is the owner provides written consent, and we check all the boxes as far as, is this person, you know, certified to do business in Sedro-Woolley? Do they have all the right contractor codes, all those things? So
I noticed on maybe a binding site plan application, Yeah, I think it was a binding site plan application. The owner of the property signs, not like the authorized agent. It would be, and I know that the county does it, so your first application, for the county, to get a building permit, you have like 10 different applications. You go through lot certification, critical areas, water availability. And so at the first application you submit, you do your agent authorization form, and then you are now the authorized agent to submit any permit on their behalf, so they don't have to sign anything. So it's just a thought, because I did run into the binding site plan. I needed a signature on it, so I was running around town to get that signature.
That's interesting. Did you say that was the county that has that?
Yeah, so the county has just like an agent authorization form. It gets notarized, and it's specific to, I think it's specific to a parcel. Yeah, you fill in the parcel information, and it says, this is an authorized agent. They have abilities to submit any permit on my behalf, and it just goes in with the first, stays on file, and then you can pretty much communicate with the county as the representative of the owner and sign all the applications on their behalf.
And I'm assuming at any point the owner could come and say,
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to revoke
Oh,
this.
yep,
Yeah,
100%.
Okay, that's an interesting case. It feels like it would certainly save a step.
Yeah, and it's nice because at least with the count, I know there was a note somewhere, I'm not sure if it was in this packet, that the city is about maybe getting an upgrade to the permit software. So it's nice because that agent authorization form then links the applicant acting as the authorized agent to any permit that is within that parcel. So like I can go back and see the history of things, even though I wasn't the original applicant, so I can kind of track and say, oh, we don't have this lot cert, or I can see, oh, what did they submit with this? Like what has been approved? It gives more visibility, which is important, especially when you're doing land feasibility, trying to figure out like what's been done, and things like that.
What do you run into when you have multiple parcels in a project? Like I had a project down in Auburn, there were 3 parcels all contiguous for one project. So you wouldn't have to submit 3 separate applications?
Nope, you just put in the P, like
Additional,
three
yeah,
parcel numbers,
okay.
yeah. And if they're all under the same, it could be 3 parcels with 3 different owners. There's just the notarization page for each
Okay.
owner.
It was just curiosity.
Yeah.
Because you run into that actually quite a bit.
We'll look into that. I like that idea.
On the page 57, architectural plans, the definition, commercial, industrial, attached dwelling with 3 or more units. There's another section in here with an architectural site plan that has a list of plan requirements. There's a large chunk of that information that is going to go on the architectural plans cover page. These lists get pretty long. And I don't know if that's the city's preference. As an applicant, I think it would be much easier to run through this if it's on the application itself and you use your checklist. This is very informational. In general, if your licensed architect that is going to drop these plans has an idea of all of these requirements, right? They're also going to check the application to make sure that their plans include all of this information. I think just having that baseline of like a licensed architect in Washington State is required to complete these plans. Under their license, they have like a duty, a level of care that has to be put in these plans that will show a lot of this information. But it could be good like recourse if there is a debacle about, oh, we want to see this on the plans, and because I've seen that happen too, of we need to see this detail on the plans, and it's like, why do you need to see that? Like, when in reality, like, if that is what the city needs to do their review, the city should have every right to, like, require that.
Yeah, thinking about this through a different lens, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, I haven't gotten down to the S's in the definitions yet, but I'm thinking about like surveys, right?
Yeah.
The Survey Recording Act has lists and lists of things that the surveyor is required to do and provide on the survey, but we don't go through and list every single requirement out
Yeah.
in the code, right? We just say, do it pursuant to the Survey Recording Act. So I think, yeah. This is a carryover from the old 2008. So we had not gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. I definitely agree it's worth tightening up and simplifying, and one of those cases where we can just reference applicable state laws and building codes.
And I have a question. So there's a note on here, Skagit County Health Department approval on plans submitted to the city for dining, food handling establishments. Is that something that you guys, is that a regular requirement? I personally haven't dealt with that. So do you have to go to the Skagit County Health Department with your final plans that you're submitting to the city before you guys do your review and get a signature on those? And then every time there's a revision, you have to go back to the health department to get their signature on it?
I'll be honest with you, I've not permitted a dining, food handling, public pool, or spa permit in my time at the city. What I will say for similar situations is we'll ask for the approval before the permit issuance. So
Yeah.
it definitely makes sense to have the Skagit County Health Department approve these things before issuance. It might not be
Before like, because this
Yeah,
guy, I
I
read
might
this
not
as I need to
say-
get the Skagit County Health Department to sign my plans, but like as a submittal requirement.
right.
Yeah, because like PUD, right? PUD is going to do their own internal review, have their own comments, and they're going to, when final plans are approved by the city, PUD is also going to say, yep, I'm ready to sign those plans too. So,
Yeah, so I would recommend changing that language to that prior to permit issuance. We can coordinate that.
and then another one, independent plan review by the State of Washington Labor and Industries Electrical Division. For I and E, well, maybe I should have looked up what I and E occupancies are. But typically, I mean, if I'm thinking, do you guys know off the top of your head know what an I and an E occupancy is?
No.
Oh, look at that.
I knew I was industrial. What was E?
Industrial and educational.
Nice.
She's been studying.
Does that go along the same lines as the Skagit County Health Department then? Because there's, like, I know that electrical, so if you have like an electrical MEP plans, you have an electrical plan that's engineered by a licensed electrical engineer. And there's also like permits that are submitted during the construction process with Labor and Industries, the electrical division, that your electrician does for you. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm curious on this one.
That's one I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
That's the guy that puts the little sticker, the L&I sticker on.
Yeah. Oh, I have one for discussion that isn't a revision, that is for the Planning Commission and the city's consideration. So on page 58, number 19, it's the calculation of lot area. I have had clients come to us to do land feasibility on their property. They just want to build a single-family home. And once we've taken a look at, and this lot area definition differs in neighboring jurisdictions. And so when we've taken a look at their parcel, oh, well, you actually have an easement coming through here, or you have a flag driveway, right? I feel like that kind of butts heads with the attempt at infill housing and like trying to offer making housing more attainable, right? Because there could be a guy that I know a guy that has a little lot in Sedro. He's had it for 20 years. He has a primary residence on the lot next door, and it's a flag lot. So you have a flag driveway. So your driveway is, I think his area is like 15 feet wide, and it goes back to the back of his house. And he was always been thinking, oh, my retirement plan is I'm going to build a little house back there, get a renter in it. And that's kind of how I'm going to retire. And when he came to us with this, it was like, oh, well, based off of the lot area, your lot isn't big enough with this flag area because it doesn't count towards the total lot area, right? So I just think that on the flag portion, that can still be utilized for stormwater management. It can still be utilized for to meet landscaping requirements, or open space, site improvements. All of that can still support the development and still be a beautiful lot. I just think that the consideration of, or a conversation should be had about how lot area is calculated.
And as part of that discussion, just to clarify where it's talking about easements for gas or power transmission lines, that's only talking about those large utility transmission
Oh yeah,
lines.
I had a
like
question. I emailed you about a
Cascade.
question about that a while
Yeah,
ago.
think Bonneville Power, Cascade Natural Gas, large 80-foot, 100-foot wide easements.
Yeah.
Not little utility easements that are 10 foot.
And you think that flag driveway to the property that's set back from a public road, if it had to have an easement for ingress or egress for this, like the neighboring house, right? It just makes it so you can't, if you have a small lot, you want to build a small house, you can't do it because you don't meet this lot area requirement for the minimum lot size.
I can see an argument for both sides, right? So it's technically not buildable area for the purposes of constructing a home, right? When you're talking about the flag driveway or ingress egress easements, you can't have constructed things in an easement. So technically, it's not buildable area. But if we could count those towards your minimum lot size, it could definitely help with the infill case. I could also see that maybe leading to more cramped feeling neighborhoods, more requests for zoning waivers when you find you're encroaching on setbacks and things like that.
Yeah, but the easement might be on a totally different parcel. I mean, that's pretty much how it is in real life. I mean, okay, you have an ingress, egress, access easement, but the land actually belongs to the one parcel allowing the easement. So why would you put that into calculation for a buildable lot since you don't own it? I mean, it's on a different parcel. I mean, what was the situation you guys were dealing with?
So it was
Was it an easement or was it actually a flag lot? Like that's
was
how
a-
it was.
It was a flag lot, and the single-family residence had to access. So then it was a flag lot, and now there was an access easement to the house,
Okay.
both houses. And so,
Oh.
and it made the lot area, I think, under 6,000 square, or the buildable area under the, because it couldn't be counted towards the lot total.
Yeah, you see that quite a bit actually, where you'll have a flag driveway, and then there's a lot at the public street frontage, and maybe for access spacing reasons, they weren't allowed to have a driveway access onto the
Okay.
street, so they're required to share access with that flag lot, right? So that easement area
totally get
does
it.
not count.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Jameson as an example. There's a couple properties down there with very similar types of configurations. Just looking at your definitions, I mean, this can go on forever, really. Like definition C, that could be an ever-expanding classification depending on what happens. I mean, right now, it's pretty simple, child daycare, CBD, calculation, survey. I mean, as time goes on, I've just seen, like, on permitted use tables, where I've seen jurisdictions to just put in what you can't do, and everything else is freewheeling. Linwood does that, and it just made it easier to read. I mean, it was like, okay, you just can't do this. Everything else is okay.
I have a question about page 60, number 6, colored display maps. When are those required? What applications require a colored display map? I mean, very fun. I like the idea of like elevations of a neighborhood detail, that kind of stuff. But is it for a PRD or is it?
I think this is old. I've never personally asked for a colored display map before. Yeah, I don't think this is relevant. It seems like it's meant to be like for like a specialized thing from before we had access to Bluebeam.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
But fun to draw.
right. Yeah, I don't know that that's relevant anymore.
And then when does, on page 62, number 4, dependent relative cottage, is this, this kind of feels a little bit like not applicable if the ADU happens?
Yeah, yeah. So the
Like-
dependent relative cottage was, essentially think of it as the pre-ADU code, right? So now rarely people use this. I've not seen any applications for this come through.
That was the one where if you put it up and then the person died or moved on, you had to take it down.
Correct, yeah, this provision allows you to have essentially a second single-family residence. So the only, I guess, distinction between the dependent relative cottage and an ADU is this is intended to be temporary. You don't have the same limitations on the size, it's a second house on your property. But essentially the idea is that once that need is no longer present, that would go away. And we would have an agreement recorded that would stipulate what that.
But who would
Those
even
parameters.
track that? I mean, somebody ends up in an assisted care facility, even though they were dependent at the time, and now they're not, now they're in assisted care for the next, in my dad's case, was 60 years.
It's a pain. We have one that we communicate back and forth with. They just kind of keep us updated. Yep, still using it for what it's used for. Good to keep going, so.
I think this is replaced by the tiny homes, you
Yep.
know? Now you just wheel a tiny home in, do the thing, and then when you're done, you wheel it out, and
Yeah,
so there's no use
it's-
for it anymore, really.
There's really no use for the dependent relative cottage, because, yeah, the ADU, once you've gone through that permitting, and it's a permanent structure, and you have way more flexibility as far as what you can do with it afterwards. You don't have to get rid of it.
For the definition of a duplex on page 63, number 10, I am wondering if this definition gets a little bit tricky with the ADU side of things as well.
Why would that apply to this? It's just saying a single building with 2 residences.
So if you had an attached ADU,
Okay.
with-
Which I've seen, what you guys do,
yeah,
actually.
so
I
like
think you
attached
did a great job
ADU
on
and
it, by the way.
building, is that now defined as a duplex, and would like duplex lot standards, like things like that? I mean, I guess it depends.
No, that's a great question, because the example you guys have on the model that we went through, which was great, yeah, it was attached, it was like another separate apartment. Would that be considered a duplex? Because it was size, it was
Yeah.
like close to 800 plus square feet. or
Yeah,
whatever
because
it
there's
was.
no like it would meet this definition of a duplex.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how does that get tricky with the ADU stuff?
Yeah.
It's an attached ADU, making it a duplex.
With those ADU code changes, there have been lots of questions like
Yeah,
this that have come up.
I know exactly what you're talking about, though.
So yes, to answer the question, it does get tricky. There's not much difference between the construction of an attached ADU
No,
and
to
a
or
duplex.
duplex, no.
It's the
no,
same.
Nothing.
So ultimately, what it comes down to for us is, what was it permitted as? Was it permitted as an ADU? Well, now you've officialized this is your primary residence, you have an ADU, you can only have one more ADU, right? If it was permitted as a duplex, and we're getting into that piece, but
Yeah, but those are, you know, with a duplex, there are two separate titles, though. So that's the difference right there. The ADU is still part of the original parcel, where a duplex, whoever owns that half of it, if that's the case, can sell that in a fee simple manner. That's what would show up on title.
Right.
It's a shared wall is all it really is.
Right.
And they're all over the place. Townhomes, I can think of 100 different examples.
So keep going with that, then what happens? We've been talking about that today.
Well, the ADU code, they just, from what I understand, it's getting updated where people are going in, and this is being advised by Chicago Title, that all of a sudden they put up two ADUs and they're using the condominium code now to separate them as separate parcels, so now they're sellable, where the first intention was for what an ADU is. Now we're looking at it as like multifamily construction, really,
And it becomes
using the
multifamily.
condominium code. So, but you'd still need an HOA for what, 2 units or 1 unit? So I'm still not sure how that's all shaking itself out, but that's pretty new. I want to say, I started seeing that in the past year.
I don't think anyone's sure how it's gonna shake out.
No.
But then ultimately, right, when the unit lot subdivision goes into play, it's essentially the same thing. If you're subdividing a parent parcel into two, then you've got your individual units, they can independently be sold off.
Banks have a different issue with it, because if you still have a mortgage on it, they're not allowed, unless you own it 100%, yeah, go ahead and do what you want. But when they write the financing, it's on whatever it is there at the time of the finance approval. So that's where the sticky part is coming in that I'm seeing right now. Oh, that's a great idea, but you don't actually own it. And the banks are like, hold on a second there.
So then, so in the example of the unit lot subdivision, so it so close to a duplex. Okay, well, let's just say it's a duplex. So then you got 2 units, they're separate legal units. Each one then is entitled to have up to 2 ADUs. So suddenly you've got 4, 5, 6
That's right. That's
units
what-
on.
And I've seen that. That's exactly what Chicago Title, what they did Mike Appleby, he's one of their senior guys. He's like, knows everything. And that's what they're recommending. If you buy a duplex, that's right. That each duplex, each unit on the duplex now has the ability to put in 2 separate.
Same with the unit lot, unit lot.
2 becomes
lot.
6.
Okay.
So can I quickly interject on that?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I was about to
those-
bring up triplex.
Don't do it yet. No. So this is exactly the reason why our legal team has advised us to provide definitions for unit lot, parent lot,
Right.
et cetera. There's a list of them in there. But they're, for the purposes of the unit lot subdivision code and ADUs, there is a difference between a unit lot for the purposes of development and a parent lot. Let me wrap my head around it for a second.
But
So,
it all becomes the same thing at some particular point, though, right? I mean,
right, so when you take your parent lot and you perform a unit lot subdivision,
okay?
if you have a situation where now your unit lot does meet minimum lot size standards for the zone, sure, you can build 2 ADUs. If it doesn't, most likely it won't, you don't have that ability. So you still have the same development standards applicable to that unit lot as would be the parent lot. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Unless it's in a PRD, because you can go as low as 2,500 square feet in our PRD code.
Right.
The Department of Commerce has a really nice handout on unit lot subdivision explanation that might be helpful for the
State Department?
Department of Commerce.
State Department
the-
of
yeah.
Commerce. Mhm.
And they put together like a little handout that has the information of how a unit lot subdivision comes to be. That's where I learned any information I know about it.
Yeah, yeah. So take everything I just said with a grain of salt, because I'm still wrapping my head around it. So those definitions I've proposed in here, like I said, they're likely going to kind of be adjusted.
And the state's aggressive, I mean, on their density calculations.
Yeah.
I'm imagining, okay, so like with we talked about a triplex today too. So you have a principal structure, which is the triplex, and then you've got within that 3 units. And you could choose one of those to be a principal unit, but how would you do that? Because they're all 3 the same.
Right.
But if each unit is allowed 2 ADUs, or is the structure allowed 2 ADUs, and I'm hoping it's the structure, but if it's the units, you've got, two per, so that'd be 6 ADUs on the site, right?
Right.
And each one could be a single wide manufactured home.
This is the stuff that keeps Commissioner Huggins up at night, because we've talked about this whole thing about 100 times.
And then pretty soon you've got an RV park there.
Yeah, yeah.
I've always said that within my lifetime, there will be cardboard boxes and they will be legal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I've got back and forth emails daily with our legal team just trying to figure
It's
this out. So.
bad thing, yeah. Thank you.
Anywho, yeah, we will work through that.
Sorry.
No, but it's coming, right? And all you need is somebody that does not live in a community that wants to take advantage of that code for not the best reasons that a community is invested in. Yeah, and that's been a lot of discussion that we had, especially when we were putting the ADU code in place, of the importance of a vested interest in what you're doing. And then the state turned everything around and said, no, Sedro-Woolley, you can't do what the intention was originally.
I can give a little bit of insight on why it is desirable for developers. The cost of land is so high,
Great, yeah.
right? And land is getting appraised at astronomical amounts. So when you're looking at your profit margin and your land cost is so high and land development cost is so high, your combined profit drops significantly because of that land cost. So if you can take that same piece of land and split it into 2, and then your margins are starting to look better.
It depends on the zoning, too. I mean,
Yeah.
I had, it was barely 4.25 acres, $12.9 million. Okay, from what I understand, was the largest land sale in Snohomish County history, yeah, but you can go 75 feet now. So, they did a density recalculation on their 10-year comp plan update. So when that zone changed, all of a sudden the land just became astronomical.
Yeah.
Just on the permitted use of the density that you could put on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Being on the right side of the tracks at times, boy. Guy paid only $400,000 for the property, walked out a filthy rich millionaire. He only bought the property 3 years prior, not even knowing this train was coming his way.
Well, another one on page 64, when we're talking about engineering geologist definitions, maybe that's the correct term, but we in the development world, we call them geotechnical
Geotech, yeah.
engineers.
Yeah, if it makes sense to use the more common term,
Yeah.
we can do
I just
that.
didn't know if that was like an outdated term or if other
I've never heard of
places
that.
use
Geotech
it.
is
It's
all I've ever
outdated, yeah.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you really read into it, you'll know what it's talking about, but it's better to use common terms everybody's, or most people are familiar with.
I have a question on, wait, I need to make sure that this is,
Right, that would be a geotech report too, yeah.
so final, page 65, the definition of final plat plan. It makes a note on here, it notes final short subdivision map. And then you go down to what that includes. And that is on page 67, certification of approval to be signed by the mayor. Does the mayor sign short plats?
It's not required by the statute. This is something that the jurisdiction has some discretion on. What is required is we have a city engineer, the community development director, and the city treasurer, who is our finance director, sign off on it.
And what's our short plat calculation? How many units? Snohomish County,
Currently,
it's
it's 4.
Okay.
We have proposed to change that to 9.
8. Okay, that's more that I see.
And the purpose for doing that is just to keep the subdivision process administrative,
Okay.
easier permitting, not having to go through the hearing examiner and charging people lots and lots
Is there a
of money.
cost difference on a permit from a regular plat to a short plat?
Oh, yes,
Is it considerable?
yes. Thousands of dollars
In time.
and time.
Definition G, page 68, grading plan definitions. It notes a licensed landscape architect, and that's gonna be a licensed civil engineer for grading plans.
Good catch.
There's also some notes in here, and Nicole, I emailed all of my notes over, so some of this, I tried not to do on this page, there's missing a the, but,
I appreciate it.
just in general, there's some, and I don't know what your guys' required standard page sizing is, but a lot of these plans have different page size requirements, like 18 by 24, and I know that there's, like, for recording purposes, there's reasons that things are certain sizes, but for this grading plan that doesn't get recorded, there's a note, it's 22 inches by 34 inches. A standard, like, plotter printer, the big page printers, if a developer was gonna print that in-house, our plotter doesn't even print to that size, so in the past, we have had to use scissors to cut pages, not for the city of Sedro-Woolley, but for a jurisdiction that was very strict on their requirements within their code. So just something to keep in mind if you put in a standard page size for, that can be kind of used across the board, or like you could do 18 by 24 or 24 by 36, because there's also the requirements of the scaling, right, done by the designer, but sometimes the scaling and the scaling is dictated by the page size requirement.
Yeah, when I was like first brought onto this city, my former boss trained me up on there being 3 standard sets, sizes for your different things. Building plans are one size, civil plans are another size. Final plats for recording are this size. You do not deviate from that, but the building and civil plans we were less strict on. But
Especially because, like, everything's reviewed electronically, you can zoom in.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I don't know where those requirements came from.
yeah.
Ultimately, what really matters is if I can, the scale is scaling.
Yeah.
But, yeah, especially now that we've moved more to electronic permitting, I don't really care if they're printed,
Yeah.
right? So we still accept printed, so it's nice to have that worked into the code, but I'll look into that to see where that
Yeah,
comes
if there's
from.
like, if it's a requirement from up above or,
I don't know.
Yeah, what's interesting, though, you're seeing how technology impacts what old, requirements were that no longer, are at play.
Yeah, with final plats, we still have to keep a conformed copy of the final recorded document, which I think is a little silly personally, just because I can look up the auditor's file number and get an electronic copy that way. But yeah, we're still required to keep the conformed copy. So that's when we do have printed. We do the whole review aspect of things electronically, save people on printing costs, because I'm just going to mark it up if I find an issue, but, and they'll have to reprint anyways, so. But as far as building plans and civil plans, it's rare now to get a paper submittal across the counter anymore.
page 68 still, D, we're talking about the grading plan, include surrounding offsite, actually, it says include surrounding offsite contours within 100 feet of the site. There is a note about this on the definition of survey as well. I definitely understand the intent behind it on a grading plan, right? You need to see offsite flows, where's the stormwater flowing, where was it originally flowing, what are the contours, things like that. When you're looking at it from like the surveying perspective, there's obviously tools available nowadays that can help with an estimate of the contours, but for a surveyor to put something on their survey map, they are going to want to get real life data of that. So what does that look like for the surveyor to enter someone else's property to acquire that data? Also 100 feet surrounding, now just took your survey from this many square feet, right, which is what pricing is based off of, to this many square feet. Now they have all this extra area, so it's an additional cost to the applicant for them to survey broader spectrum than just the parcel. So just something to think about. And with the grading plan, again, like I definitely understand drainage flows and stuff. It's also something that with the technology, you can look up, like on the Skagit County parcel searching, get contours, so get a guesstimate. But for a survey to pin that down, like how, and of course they could I don't know, I'm not a surveyor. They could probably write like these are estimated contour lines, but judging the like review off that, it's just something to think about because I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, to me, it makes much more sense to have the contours living on a grading plan, not on a survey.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, generally what I'm using a survey for is determining where the property lines, where any recorded easements are, those sorts of things. At most, I'll see existing structures on a survey. But once you start adding contour lines, like you're saying, it's just kind of unnecessary. If all of this is useful for the grading plan review,
Yeah.
It's just adding lines to something that I'm having a hard time reading now, right? So what's an easement line versus a contour line, right? So
And it can get wild.
It
I mean,
can.
not so much in Sedro-Woolley, we're pretty flat. But
right,
in
yeah,
other,
it's pretty rare we even really
Yeah.
care
I
about
can
the
think of an
contour
exact
lines anyway.
example. On Beachley, I sold a property, it's 5 acres. It goes up township. It's surrounded by all residential property. So if I was gonna do 100 feet, I'd be in about maybe 15 different backyards, including
Yeah.
DNR.
yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that'd be expensive too. And then all those permissions from everybody and just even the time to hold something up.
Still on page 68F, setback areas in any areas not to be disturbed. It might be nice to reword that to areas of disturbance, setbacks, and critical areas.
So areas not to be disturbed would be critical areas, native growth protection areas.
Yeah,
that kind of
on a grading plan, you're gonna kind of see the disturbed, everything that's being disturbed, there's going to be, because you have a TESC plan, a temporary erosion control sediment plan, and it is going to have your development boundary on it, so you're gonna know, like, this is the area that's being disturbed. So just saying the area of disturbance, like, it'll be something that's on those plans. But then critical areas is one thing that is shown on a grading plan, and which it should be, right? Because you need to really make sure that your temporary erosion control sediment stuff is in place for that.
Yeah, that change makes sense to me.
Just a note on page 69H, type and location of fill origin and destination of any soil to be removed from site. This is something that's on a lot of applications, and it, as the applicant, it is so typical to put to be decided, right? Because whatever you're excavating and hauling away, it's going to depend on the fees at that time to dump, as well as what quarry is going to have the best pricing for what you're importing. So, I mean, just something to note. And I don't, maybe other applicants know exactly, but every time that gets filled out, it's just TBD.
I have a feeling the intention of having put that in the code was making sure the applicant has good intentions as far as where they
Oh, that makes
might
sense.
be dumping
Yep,
it.
that makes sense.
in an appropriate location. It's probably related to SEPA. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I see that all the time. To be determined. We don't know yet. But
But it could be different soil types depending on how deep you go.
correct, yeah.
You can go 10 feet down, all of a sudden you're in sand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about page 70, number 6, definition of height. Why is the city moving away from an average grade? Instead of, now it's the greatest vertical distance from the established grade.
This can be difficult to apply consistently with every application. This way is just much clearer for us to implement across the board easily.
I can
Frankly, that's
see the greatest vertical distance. Again, less so in Sedro-Woolley because it's more flat, but there's a project out in LaConner on, it's called Snapdragon Heights or LaConner Heights, and it's on a cliff, right?
Yeah.
So it's beautiful up there, but there's a portion, to give, the road comes up and you have an elevation of, say, like 75. That's the front elevation of the lot. The back elevation of the lot is at 20. So you have a 20-foot height difference. If right there, then you build your house on the roadside, what you're gonna see, you're not gonna have this 50-foot tall house from the road perspective, because you're gonna have a daylighted basement down, right? But that right there, if you're doing greatest vertical distance and your building height requirement is like 20, I feel like it's a little bit tricky. So just in terms of heights, I mean, again, it's not really so much in Sedro-Woolley. It's a pretty flat area, but there are the lots that aren't, right?
Right.
Just something to think about and I mean, that could be, would that be a waiver or would that be a variance? What's height under?
Building height is a bulk restriction, so it'd go under a waiver.
A waiver. So at least they still could, if that situation came up, they could still say, hey, this is a special circumstance. Just something to think
And that
about.
would be obvious too. I mean,
Yeah.
It would be specific to the individual property.
Right.
I can think of a bunch of places. We go uphill on good part of the city, really, if you just go up Township or anything else where you're at. The elevation's pretty steep, too.
Page 73, the lot width at building line, another one that I think could warrant some conversation, similar to the lot area definition. I mean, there was a short plat that we ran into that we were trying to meet the duplex requirements on for the lot sizing, and it made some really, really funny lots. And it was just the only way it would play out, right? It just, to make it fit all that in there, this is just a regular Sedro-Woolley resident who has a big lot and wanted to get some more density, and really ran into some challenges with like lot width at building line. And for existing, this is the short plat process, right? So that process in itself allowed us to move lot lines and things like that. If this is just an existing lot, could be restrictive for infill development.
Trying to think, I'm pretty sure in most cases, the lot width at the building line is 40 feet. I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure.
I've seen some funky looking lots with lines all over the place, that they're not linear on both sides. One is longer, then it cuts on down, and
Page 74. I don't actually know. It's just this top sentence I don't. Oh, number 2, I'm guessing. It says the plans include major trees, shrubs, large rocks. It says creeks and watersheds. I think the creeks should change to critical areas.
Agreed.
because they would all be the same, you're right. It captures everything.
For the mechanical plans definition, so typically the building official will determine whether, depending on the type of construction that you're doing, they will determine whether your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing plans need to be engineered or not. And there's some definitions in some other jurisdictions. This also relates to like landscape plan, like when does a landscape plan need to be drawn by a licensed landscape architect, and or you think about mechanical, plumbing, electrical plans. In some cases, in most cases, it's a bidder design, right? So the HVAC company that is gonna do your mechanical work is going to design the like HVAC systems, like especially for single family homes. A engineered mechanical plan isn't going to be required for a single family home. You have the energy code information. You have like the architect will put a general location of things on there. I think for the mechanical and the plumbing and the electrical, as well as landscape, it might be nice to obviously it would, like, building official would have authority on whether they're engineered. I don't know if putting that verbiage in there specifically would be beneficial, or maybe like differentiating when the city is going to require like an engineer to be involved, right? Because going from a bidder design, right, the design from a subcontractor is going to be free because they're being awarded the work. They're making their money that way. But when it comes to mechanical plumbing, like licensed engineers in that department, those costs are astronomical. And most commercial buildings are going to have engineered plans required by the building official. It's a known thing, but in some cases they're not. The city of Arlington just recently didn't require mechanical plans on mechanical plans on a restaurant, right? Or like an electrical. It just kind of depends on the scale of the project. And so I don't know. It's just food for thought. I don't know. I don't have like a proposed revision to how that could be written. I know the city of Burlington on their, is it the city of Burlington? I think it is the city of Burlington. Irrigation plans can be better designed, right? Because the landscape plan is done by a licensed architect, but you can do an irrigation plan by the bidder design. It saves the applicant a lot of money, especially if the landscape architect is not going to be involved in that part of the process. So and I definitely think that plan should be received and reviewed, but at what level? Like irrigation doesn't have to meet a certain code.
Okay.
So
thinking more so to put thresholds within this
yeah.
to kind of identify this is the level that
yeah,
you
or
need.
just making a note like just with the definition of mechanical plans and that it's per the International Mechanical Code. I mean, for a single family residence, that is going to be just on the plan set from the architect, and it's going to be to the energy code that's noted on the architectural plan set. So the sourcing, I feel like, isn't always consistent case by case.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely have to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, that's good feedback.
The multifamily residence definition on that page, again, ADU friction thought.
Yeah.
And then another one kind of along the lines of lot area and building width is page 75, net density. So net density can have real-world impacts on housing production. Changing the definition of this to include all land within the boundary of the developable area would be a more pro-housing stance. So right now, your net density, it's going to exclude certain things, critical areas, the right-of-way, things like that. But if we were to reconfigure the net density calculation, it would allow more units within a subdivision. So just something to think about if you are taking the pro-housing stance.
There was a reason why that was in there, because, and actually, Paul was at that meeting when we were doing PRDs. We put buildable land because let's say you had a 10-acre parcel and 80% of it is wetlands that you can't do anything with. So we were basing the net density on the actual buildable land, not things that you couldn't use, which would be these things that were listed here. Like critical areas, buffers, and things like that. So what do you, go ahead.
So if you're doing net density, you've got the number of dwelling units divided by the net site area. And it includes all land within the boundary of development except for...
The boundary of development, is that the buildable land portion of it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Hold on, let me read through this. It means the number of dwelling units located on buildable land. So if you have a parcel and you have this much buildable land, your net density is based off of this total area instead of this total area. So you could get more density. And again, right, that's why the minimum lot size requirements are in place. You have to meet all of these other thresholds. Net density is just like an added threshold to it like if you can meet all of those other thresholds, but you're limited in your density. Does that make sense? Am I explaining
It's
this
making
right?
sense to
Okay.
me, yeah. Yeah, ultimately, you're going to have a lot of other backstops that are gonna prevent you.
Right,
From-
because that's included, and I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like there's already the dimensional standard requirements that are in place. So calculating density based off of, like only a chunk of buildable land when you could calculate density off of a larger piece, get higher density and still meet those, dimensional standards would be more beneficial because,
This is just overly restricted.
yeah, right? It's just like another layer on top.
I'm open to this personally. Relooking at that net density.
I think that, and I don't know how it came out, but I think that's what we tried to do with the PRD was that if you have large amounts of critical area on your property, then it would allow you to make smaller lots or go up or whatever so that you could get the density of the area of the whole property, even though, say, 60 or 80% of the lot or of the property was unbuildable
Right.
because it was for critical areas and
And
buffers.
that's why we did put that in there.
Yeah.
That's specifically why we put that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basing it on what you could actually do
Critical
with it.
areas, I think there are some parameters on that, but, like if you have critical areas, that you are mitigating, you can count it toward your open space and landscaping design.
Right, we had retention ponds, depending if it was landscape. I mean, we're talking, I saw the Duke's Hill on theirs, it's just a rectangular retention pond, but the fact that you're just gonna put a bunch of picnic tables and everything else around it, right, okay, it makes it usable open space. It depends on how you do it. I mean, you can plant some things in there to,
Could be really good, could be really bad, depending on who's developing it, yeah.
right, oh, yeah. Which, by the way, our parking calculation is spot on, because I've been looking at some of the new developments that went into UVMU. There wasn't a single parking spot left in any of these places, and they're not 100% leased. I got some giggles out of it, saying, yep. Good job, by the way. You went through this in real detail. And points well taken, too.
Page 81. M, accessing utilities. I think this is in regard to the survey. Hold on, I gotta go back up. Yeah, so this is oh no, this is on the preliminary binding site plan. Let's see.
What are you looking at now? I'm on page 81.
Yeah, but I think I've got this in the wrong spot on my notes. Oh, no, okay, disregard that. Oh, there's the contour comment on there. For N. On page 91, site plans for commercial, industrial, multifamily. They note that a licensed architect needs to draw this. Some other jurisdictions require the architect to draw a site plan. When you look through this checklist, though, well, I'll tell you what happens in real life. The civil engineer designs the whole site, lays out the whole site, puts it all together, has all 90% of this information on their civil plans. And then the architect gets done with their plans, and I'm like, oh, but wait, we need an architectural site plan. So the civil designer then has to send them her civil plan, and he has to copy it to pretty much a T. And I don't know, some jurisdictions require it, some don't. I don't know if it is a like whack require. I'm not sure why this is, but if you go through this, like A through G is going to be on the civil site plan. H is going to be on the landscape plan. I is going to be on the electrical plan. J through L is going to be on the civil plans. And then we get onto the next page, and that entire first chunk of information is all going to be on the architectural cover page of the architectural plan set. And so for the most part, like all of this information is already provided. It just costs more money to have the architect redraw what the civil engineer drew to give you the same information. So I'm not sure if architectural site plans, how.
It's a hangover from my era. I mean, it's just, it's the old way of doing things. Front page was your perspective of the house, and second page was the site plan, and it
Yeah.
was drawn in color a lot of times, and it was just, it just showed what the house looks like looking down on it, like you do with a drone now or something like that. And that, I mean, a drone shot could be your site plan, seriously,
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Because you have it. So anyway, it's just, I think it's just a hang on from that, and that was mostly for, small projects that they did that. I don't know that much about commercial and industrial and how those drawings are done, so I'm taking your word for that. But I do understand why they were requiring that in Sedro-Woolley 40 years ago, because almost everything was homes, and they wanted to see what the house would look like, and they wanted to
Yeah.
see what it would look like from the air or in the site plan view, or,
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense.
yeah. So,
So are you saying to remove the Washington licensed architect?
Yeah, from the licensed architect requirement, I think. I think it would be better suited to be the civil engineer as the licensed, like party of record for the site plan.
I'll see what we can do about that.
but are you still gonna want, so if I come in tomorrow with my, because you said I could come in with a, paper copy of my plans, are you gonna want the site plan for that? I mean, it seems like you'd want it.
Yeah, I'd want a site plan. Ultimately, what I care about is that the information I'm requesting is on it, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
really
no,
care
exactly.
who drew it.
Yeah, right,
But there may be rules I just don't personally know about as to
yeah.
where, yeah.
Because, I mean, she's looking at it a lot from doing subdivisions and commercial and all of that, which always requires, almost always requires licensed people to do this stuff. But mom or dad can draw, as long as they have all the information on it, mom or dad can still draw a floor plan for a house and do the site plan and.
If it meets, so the Department of Ecology has, within their stormwater manual, has thresholds. So you have requirements 1 through 5, and then you have requirements 5 through 9. These thresholds have square footage areas based off of how much surface runoff you're going to do. So if your project is bigger and you're going to have more surface runoff, a licensed civil engineer is going to be required to do the plans. But if you're in the minimum requirements 1 through 5, typically anyone can draw. You don't have to be a licensed civil engineer. Like for the county, for some custom homes, like BYK draws them in-house. For single family residences, for plats, BYK draws our site plans in-house. So I think it's, and my assumption is that it's like within your DOE threshold, like DOE requires it to be engineered by a licensed civil engineer at a certain point. So anybody that can get away with not having it to have to be, utilize a civil engineer is gonna try to do that to save money. Page 95, 18, stream and lake data. I feel like this information could somehow be wrapped into like a overall critical areas definition. There's, for B, a reconnaissance report, it says, this report shall include the following information. The next page, it notes the ordinary high water mark determined in the field. It notes some things that when you request a critical areas reconnaissance report, you aren't requesting them to delineate that wetland. You're requesting them to go out and make their observations. So they're not actually like flagging it. It's just like the very initial stage of like, hey, can you go check this out? Are there wetlands on my property? But this kind of makes the reconnaissance report, like having the site map require the ordinary high water mark. If it is not delineated with flags and a surveyor doesn't come out to survey those flags, you're not gonna have that information. So I don't know if it should be named, like that should all roll into the assessment portion. Because when you do an assessment, then you're gonna get a formal delineation with critical area flagging, and the surveyor will come out and put it on a survey.
Yeah, to me, there's some conflict between your reconnaissance report, what's defined here, and critical areas assessments.
Yeah.
That is more so what you're going to use to have those actual delineations. It's most often used for, your subdivision proposals where we need to assign a protected critical area tract. So I need to know exactly what the boundaries of that critical area are.
And they could be all over the place. They could be.
They can,
Yeah.
right. So I think we're working on that critical areas ordinance update at the same time as
Yeah.
we're doing this. So I'd like to take that back to Facet and just kind of talk with them at, does this make more sense to be included in that update?
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't fit so well here. Yeah, and this just kind of seems a little outdated. I don't often ask for critical area reconnaissance reports because it doesn't really give me much
Yeah.
information, right? Beyond, yes, I know that there's a wetland there. What am I going to do with that information? Ask for a critical areas
Yeah,
assessment.
exactly. That's like the feasibility part that the developer or homeowner is like doing independently
Right.
to get you that assessment if they're.
Yeah, when I'm asking for reports, I want to know the
Yeah.
exact delineation, because either I'm making a SEPA determination off of it,
Right.
or I'm asking you to designate a protected critical area tract. I need to know what those
You know,
boundaries
they've gotten
are.
really expensive too. I've seen them go up like double since only like 6 or 7 years ago. And now they're GPSing where the flags are at. Like wetland resources for extra money, they'll not only flag it, but they'll GPS ID it as well. So it's getting a little bit more advanced than it was, and I've seen properties where that setback has just been all over the place, just based upon the contour of whatever water or wetland waters are in there.
Page 99, just the unit lot subdivision definition. I just made that note again. Department of Commerce has a really good handout that might be useful to the Planning Commission to kind of wrap their head around how that is all playing out all over the state.
Using the same terminology too, so we're all
Yeah.
talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I put a note on that too, I'll take a look at it. When you go to the Department of Commerce site, what is it gonna be, like a separate pull-down thing?
I think if you Google Department of Commerce unit lot subdivision,
It'll pull up that exact,
it's a PDF document.
Okay.
I was Googling unit lot subdivision and
Right, okay,
I came
okay.
across it, so. I think we're getting closer to all of my comments.
I'm looking at unresponsive. You know, can you please talk to me, text me?
Oh, and so
Ghosting, ghosting, planning and development.
page 125, and I think the work live units was just a relocation.
Yes.
But I do have a comment on page 125D. The main entrance to the building shall have commercial windows and doors. If you are getting what is defined as a commercial window or door, they, like a storefront commercial window or door, how that's defined in the code, they are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more than achieving the exact same look with standard. Obviously, they're all to code. They're going to be tempered, rated for all that stuff. The cost of storefront and commercial is very, very significant, and we're finding that with other jurisdictions. We're building a little restaurant for a company in Arlington, and their requirement was commercial windows and doors, and it was a $15,000 difference in cost with achieving the exact same look. Something to think about when, and this doesn't like explicitly say storefront, so that is good, right? But just something to keep in mind, because it's a fight that has to be fought, or it has to be realized, right? It's an extra step for the developer to say, hey, look at what we can achieve. It meets your design standards, and then look at how much it would cost if we went with your requirement. So finding the balance there is important.
It depends on what the reasoning was for it in the first place. I mean,
Yeah.
is it commercial because, when you buy commercial grade plugs, they're much heftier and they're gonna last a lot longer and they're tougher to destroy than a spec grade. And so is that the purpose, or is it just because you want a commercial look to the building?
Yeah.
And then, if you can get it with some kind of residential, like they do in Europe, they have all
Yeah.
kinds of houses with glass doors instead
Yeah.
of wood doors in them now to get light in. And they look just as good as the commercial ones. I don't know if they are or not, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and we're doing some work behind the scenes here soon to propose some major updates to our design standards and guidelines manual as well. So as part of that work, I'd like to go through and do kind of a code scrub to find anything that really feels like it fits better in the design stuff, which this is an example of where I think that that's the case. To me, maybe just using the word mimic,
Yeah.
mimic commercial storefront doors
Yeah.
or windows or whatever, because that'll open up the flexible option for us to say, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
And you
or
still get to
maybe
do
it's
your
not.
review and say, does this meet the design intent we're trying to achieve, Those are all my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowman. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I admire people who can do code. I studied architecture and I didn't license. I did architecture, but I never licensed because I didn't want to deal with codes. I look at things more from yeah, I mean, if I had opened a business, I realized later I could just hire somebody to do that for me. But, all I wanted to know was what the parameters are and then design the building, just tell me what hoops I gotta jump through, and then I'll do the thing. And so anyway, I look more at the architectural psychology side of things. How do people live in this? How do they perceive this when you do this or that? And how does it affect them as people? So that's more my side of things. But I really appreciate you guys that can crunch numbers and read code and design code for things. Thank you.
Commissioner Fatisi?
I'm good. No, this has been great. I'm glad you went through it with the fine-tooth comb as you
Well,
did.
I had some of these comments on the last round, and then I missed the deadline to send them in, and so I copied half of them onto here, and so.
That's why I didn't send anything in. I
Yeah.
thought I'd just sit here and listen.
Commissioner Huggins? Do you have any comments or any additional questions?
Oh, I don't have any more comments.
Okay, I don't either. So if there's nothing else, we can go ahead and close out the unfinished business portion of the agenda. The time I currently have is 8:26 PM. Moving on to new business.
We have no new business today.
Closing out new business again at 8:26 PM. And moving on to information discussion items. Update on critical areas ordinance amendments.
Okay. Excuse me, we do have just a couple things to talk about there. We hired Facet, our consultants team, to help us with an update to the critical areas ordinance, and they did put together a report, but it came in Friday. Nicole, if you want to help out here.
Yeah. So Facet submitted to just staff first draft of proposed code amendments to the critical areas regulations chapter. It's about 150 pages long, and we got it on Friday, so we weren't quite ready to bring it to you tonight.
Did she include the comments we made on she was going to do a little bit of research on some different jurisdictions of how they handled little nuances in the setbacks, because the setbacks was the main conversation that we were having.
Yes, and I recall a question being brought up if we could put some renderings together on how this could be applicable in like a real-life case as well. So, working on that.
Okay.
So staff are going to review internally. It'll take some time to do that. We may be ready by the August meeting to bring that back.
It's only 150 pages. Outside of all this other stuff that you had to
Yeah,
go.
so, and then there's been some things that came out of this that we want to bring up with them as possible incorporation into that too. So there may be some back and forth, but.
So that's the update on the critical area ordinance that you got it Friday. It's 151 pages long.
We have a draft. It's a draft.
That's an update.
That's an
There you go.
update. Yeah.
Well, and my apologies, I wasn't able to make that meeting, but I did get a chance to watch the recording of it. And I remember Commissioner Fatizzi talked about canary reed grass.
Yeah.
And I actually
yeah.
went around Sedro-Woolley and I found a lot of canary reed
Right,
grass.
that's a wetland, technically.
But in the drainage ditches and some of the components that were identified as being critical areas in our drainage ditches. And so it will be interesting what we use as discriminators, because it would be awful if all of our drainage ditches became critical areas.
They'll do that to you.
They will do that. That's right. That's right.
Well, if there's nothing else regarding the update on the critical areas ordinance and amendments,
Nothing else.
anything else to share or add? Okay. Well, then, if anyone wants to make a motion to adjourn,
Go ahead.
this would be a great time.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Bowman made the motion. Commissioner Fatizzi seconded. The time I have is 8:29 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.